Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast is all about our journey into the woods of ourselves, getting to know who we are, and where we're going in life so that we can create the life that we want to live. It's about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. It's also about mindset. Our beliefs are such an important part of this journey, and there are so many ways for us to change our mindset so that we can more easily live a life of expansive joy. This podcast is also about going literally into the woods and spending time in nature, and how that can help us on our own personal journey of self-knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 420. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about intuition and adventure. Now, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's been on my mind, and I usually do a bit of research to see what other people have said about the topic that I want to cover, just to kind of see what other people have said about it. Do I agree? Do I disagree? What other ideas do I have? But this time I could only find one blog post about intuition and adventure, and it wasn't that great, so it wasn't helpful. So, for inspiration and reference, I'm turning to my book, Business Intuition, which is all about intuition, but just applied to business. So instead of applying intuition to business, here I'm going to apply intuition to the field of adventure. And I know business stuff is like totally unrelated to anything that I talk about now, but I just wanted to say I have all brand new covers for my 4 business mindset books, and I really, really like them. I've uploaded all the covers this week, and they just look really pretty. They're really simple. They just feel great. They really feel appropriate for the book. So, a small aside, those books are new. It's same content, but just new covers, and I'm really, really happy with them. So, episode 420. I feel like this should be about something cannabis related, but I don't do that, so here we are talking about intuition instead. So, intuition. What is it? Intuition is the ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning or logic. It's following your gut. And there are so many other kind of ways to talk about intuition. You might have heard it called like a funny feeling, gut feeling, you're following your heart, your higher wisdom, your inner compass, your inner voice, your sixth sense, your true north. People have different ways of calling it. I call it my gut, and you may have heard me say that my gut is smarter than my head, and I say that a lot because when I follow my intuition, things go really well, and when I don't follow my intuition and I try to apply logic and reason and ignore the intuition, things don't usually go as well. Hence, my Master Gut group, which is a group of 4 of us total, but 3 beautiful friends and me. And it's like a mastermind, but we encourage each other to follow our intuition rather than logic. And this is a group that's been, I don't know how long we've been meeting, at least 3 years. And it's been really, really helpful in keeping me on track with following my intuition, listening to my intuition, having the courage to do the stuff that it tells me to do. And it's just been great. So it's really helped me to reinforce it. So what's my journey to intuition? I'm going to talk about this very briefly. I used to have, I think, or I would have said 0 intuition. Like, I don't think anyone has 0 intuition, but I just felt like I didn't have any. I made some questionable life decisions, I don't know, in my mid-20s and had a really bad decade from about 25 to 35. It was like a series of bad decisions that got me into a place and kept me in that place. And I felt really stuck and really misaligned and just in a wrong place and just really out of touch with myself. I was in survival mode for like a decade. And it was really, really challenging. And so as a result, I was really disconnected to myself and really disconnected to my intuition. And I thought, because I was so disconnected from myself, I thought that intuition was just something that you were either born with it or not. I didn't realize it was something that you could develop. And it wasn't until many years later that I started reconnecting with myself and getting to know myself better, and as a result, understanding it's a skill like anything else. It's like building muscles in the gym. You have like an intuition muscle, and you can absolutely develop the skill. It's like being athletic. Growing up, I thought, it just wasn't born with that gene, and so I wasn't athletic. But then I realized that was BS, and I can be athletic. And so here we are today, talking about ultra marathons and other adventures. So intuition, it's a skill. Whether or not you think you have it, you do have it, and you can develop it. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about how you can do that. So first of all, what happens when we ignore our intuition? From personal experience, I find that when I ignore my intuition, I find myself doing things that take me down the wrong path. So I have this gut feeling that I need to make a change in my life, or make a decision, or do a thing, and then my head steps in and it's like, no, of course not. No, you don't need to do this thing. You need to do this other thing, which is much more logical. And I often find that like my gut is telling me, it's like my gut knows what I'm capable of, and my mind does not. My mind it filters things through my mindset, which can be filtered by fears and blocks and limiting beliefs, and those things can make me think that I'm not capable of doing these things that my intuition is telling me to do. So oftentimes, when we ignore our intuition, we're limiting ourselves to what we think we're capable of, when in reality, we're capable of so much more. When I ignore my intuition, I find that I just take the wrong path and just do things that seem logical, but just aren't the right path. But when I follow my intuition, I find myself doing things that I might not have done otherwise if I had applied logic and reason to the situation. I find myself doing things that are outside of my comfort zone, which leads to growth and new adventures. And when I follow my intuition, I find myself down a path that just feels right. It just feels like the aligned path or the aligned activity or adventure. Again, it's not a path that I would have logically chosen, but it just feels right. It works and it's great. So that's why it's so important for me to cultivate my intuition, to listen to it, and that's why my Master Gut group is so important to me. And we don't just talk about business stuff in there, we also talk about personal things. And I find it really useful to have a group of friends that we meet every week who can keep me on track with listening to my intuition rather than making logical, head-based decisions. And there's a time and a place for logic and reason. I'm not saying that it's crap and you should never use it, but I think that when we apply logic and reason and give more weight to that than to our intuition, I think that's when, personally, I find myself getting into, not trouble, but like not going on the right path. Because like I said, our logic and reason are filtered through our mindset, which can be affected by fears, blocks, and limiting beliefs, which can keep you small and not adventurous. So, how do you develop your intuition? In my book, I talk about 3 steps. And you might hear some page turning here as I'm consulting the book. So 3 steps. So the first step is to make space, because when you're super busy and your mind is like cluttered with a bunch of crap and you're stressed and you've got anxiety, like you don't have space to hear your intuition. Like it might pop in, but it's so tiny, you probably won't even hear it. So step 1 is to make space. Step 2 is to tune in to your intuition. Step 3 is to turn up the volume of your intuition so that you can hear those messages louder and more clearly. So step 1, make space. You got to declutter your mind. It's really, really hard to listen to that tiny whisper of your intuition when your mind is cluttered with stuff. I've been really stressed for the last few months. While I'm not having that peak of anxiety that I had earlier in the year during our last lockdown, I'm just really stressed. So I haven't been listening to my intuition as much, and it's been harder to listen to it. But I've started to make plans for what I'm going to do to de-stress. I've got a couple of workations planned this month, which will be kind of a creative break and will kind of feed my creative need. And then in September, I've got some time blocked out to go camping. And camping is always great for relaxation and for just sleeping really well. And that's what I need. But it's August and everyone else is camping, so I can't go now. So that's me. Hopefully that will give you ideas for some things that you can do. But again, when I'm stressed, it's hard to hear my intuition. So it's really important to declutter your mind, free your mind of crap, and allow space for your intuition to speak up. So lately, I felt a little bit of kind of a break from the stress. Now that I've booked in my workations and I've blocked out time on my calendar to go camping, like I feel like that's freed up a little bit of space, and I've had some kind of intuitive nudges for adventures and things that I want to do. So how do you make space in your head? One of the things that I love is what I call my mind decluttering meditation. And this is something that I first developed when I joined my former spiritual group several years ago. I think that was 2006. And we had this kind of meditation-like exercise that we had to do every day. And I found it really, really difficult to focus and to concentrate and to do this meditation. So what I started doing was, for about 5 minutes before I did the actual meditation or exercise, I did what I now call my mind decluttering meditation. So I would sit quietly in the same space that I was going to do my meditation in, close my eyes, relax, but I would have a pen and a paper with me. Not a computer, pen and paper. And I would relax and I would kind of pretend that I was going to meditate, like calm my mind. But when something would pop into my mind, instead of kind of releasing it like you're supposed to do with meditation, I would open my eyes and write it down to get it out of my head. So close my eyes, and then I would think, oh God, I have to call that person. Right, write it down. Then I would close my eyes again, and I would relax, and I would go back. Another thought would pop into my head. Usually it was stuff to do that I wanted to make sure I wouldn't forget. And I would open my eyes and write it down. I would just keep doing it until I cleared my head of all this crap. And then once I was finished with the whole process, I would go to my computer, take that written list, and get it into my system to make sure that stuff got done. But I often find that when I sit to give myself some time and space, that's when all the stuff pops into my head that like I need to do. So it's really good to get that stuff out of your head and into a system. And I first got the idea for this through David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, which if you haven't read it, it's really, really good. I'm a super big fan of productivity and getting stuff done. And so I found it really, really good. I don't follow his system at all, really. I don't think I'd need to read the book because I think the last time I read it was like 2005. But I found it really useful. And I'm a super organized person anyway. People that know me will say that I'm very organized. Someone just said it today. Someone asked me for these files that he had sent me like 9 years ago. And I found them on my computer in a very organized folder and gave them to him. And he was like, wow, you're more organized than I am. So anyway, so I'm very organized, yet I found this book super useful. So if you're not an organized person, you might find it useful. So David Allen, Getting Things Done, I will link to it in the show notes. Next, release your mind chatter or your mind gremlins or your self-talk. Calm your mind using some kind of mindset technique. So I have worked with PSYCH-K for years. With myself, also with clients in the past. You could use something like NLP, EFT, hypnotherapy. There are lots of things that work at the subconscious level to clear your fears, blocks, limiting beliefs, trauma, that kind of thing. Because all that stuff can get in the way of you listening to your intuition and even hearing it. So if you don't know what any of these things are, I will link to them in the show notes. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about PSYCH-K. I very rarely work with clients, but I can answer questions and refer you to people that I highly recommend for client sessions. Next, give yourself permission to listen to your intuition. And this sounds really simple, but I think some people consider intuition to be something like woo-woo. It's not scientific, it's not rational, it's a weird thing. So just give yourself permission to explore your intuition. And like I said, you don't need to throw logic and reason in the trash, but maybe set them aside and be open and curious about the possibility of intuition. And release your resistance. So if you have any resistance to following your intuition or to doing any of this stuff, again, you can use PSYCH-K or any other mindset techniques to clear that stuff, to clear any limiting beliefs or fears or blocks you have around intuition. Next, physically declutter or clean. That really helps. So I find that when I declutter my physical space, it really gives my mind a lot of space. Now, we live in a really small house and it's kind of cluttered and I really hate it when it's cluttered. And I go through every once in a while and I declutter and it feels great. Last year during our first lockdown, I bought all these like organizer things for the kitchen and for like cupboards and stuff. And I felt really good and organized. And then it just kind of gets cluttered again. So it's an ongoing process. It's not like you just declutter once and you're like, yep, done for the rest of my life. I really need to declutter some things right now. My office is not that bad, but it's not that great either. So decluttering, like every room in your house, like go through little by little and just declutter stuff and get rid of stuff. It's not a logical thing that decluttering your physical space will help declutter your mind, but it does. So just get rid of old crap, organize stuff, and your life will be so much better. And you'll have space for your intuition. So that's all about making space. So the next step is to tune in. So like now that you've made space by decluttering your mind, and again, this can be a thing that you do in cycles. This can be an ongoing thing. Really, the mind decluttering meditation you can do like every day, every week, whatever. It's something that you kind of constantly, well, not constantly, but regularly need to be doing to clear your mind of the stuff that clutters it up. So after you've done that, tune in and start tuning into your meditation. And there are so many ways that you can do that. And a lot of them involve just slowing down and relaxing and giving yourself the time and the space to receive those messages from your intuition. So you could meditate. I know not everyone is into meditation, but you can do it. It's a very common technique to slow down and to give yourself that time and space. And you might notice that ideas pop into your head and you can stop and write them down. Or if you have a good memory, you can just kind of make a mental note to like let go of that now and then write it down at the end, whatever works for you. You can also try guided visualization. So my friend Cara Wilde, who has been on this podcast several times, has some really good guided journeys that she channeled from one of her older spirit guides that she had years ago when I first met her. And they're really, really good. I've listened to some of these guided visualizations 30 times. I used to listen to them every night before going to bed, and I've received so many great insights from doing these. So I'm going to link to her website and her downloads, and I think she's got them available to download for free now, and they're fantastic. Actually, I think Cara is going to be a guest on next week's episode, so if you're not familiar with her, you will hear her next week. We're going to be talking about stone circles. So try guided visualizations, try meditations, go on a nature walk. Just walking out in nature can be really good for slowing down, relaxing, and giving yourself the time and space for ideas and stuff to come in. The same goes for exercise. So whether it's running, walking, hiking, whatever, long distance hikes, long distance runs, short distance runs and hikes, whatever. Exercise can be really good because you get into this state of flow that allows ideas to come in really easily and allows your intuition to speak up. Also doing something repetitive. So could be like some kind of exercise, but not something where you have to count like crunches or lifting weights or things like that, where you're counting reps. Running, that kind of thing that gets you into flow is good. Also, stuff outside of the gym like chopping vegetables, knitting, pulling weeds in the garden, kind of repetitive physical actions can calm your conscious mind and open up space for your intuition to speak up and send you some messages. Again, go with simple tasks, maybe nothing too elaborate. Like if you're knitting, like I find, I haven't knitted in years, but like knitting scarves was always really good for this for me because you're just kind of going down and back and down and back. You're not like counting rows and doing sleeves and socks and like fancy stuff. Driving, this is not something that I do, but it's a great technique for a lot of people. Just go for a drive in a beautiful place or just go for a drive anywhere and see what comes up, see what pops into your head. Like go for a drive with the intention of allowing for space, allowing space for these messages to come in. And get creative. Like you can do other stuff that gets you into a state of flow. So you can draw, you can paint, you can dance, you can write, you can play music. Like whatever gets you into that state of flow and gets your creative juices going, that can also give you the time and space for your intuition to pop in. You can write in a journal. Sometimes writing in a journal can help you get stuff out of your head and declutter your mind. And it can also help you to get in touch with where you are, what you're feeling, what you want, and allow these messages from your intuition to come through. You can flip a coin, and this is something that my husband and I do all the time. This is like our primary decision-making tool. So whenever we need to make a decision about something, we flip a coin. And the idea is not that you flip the coin and you do what the coin says. Like heads is go here for dinner and tails is go to this other place for dinner. And then you do it. It's how do I feel when I see the outcome of that coin toss? Am I excited about that option or am I disappointed because I wanted the other option? And that's really good because it helps you tune into that gut feeling. Do I want this or do I want that? Flip a coin. It's a great, great technique. Muscle testing is also great. And I have a video about this, which I will link to in the show notes on my YouTube channel. But I used to be really, really big into muscle testing, particularly when I was working with PSYCH-K, because you use muscle testing a lot in every aspect of PSYCH-K. So muscle testing is really great to help tune in to what your system wants. So you muscle test to get a strong or weak response as to what's going on, what you believe, what you don't believe. Finally, using oracle cards can be really great. So you can ask a question and then pull a card from a deck and see what the answer is, and then really tune into what that means for you. So that's a really good way of practicing intuitive messages. You can do things like just asking a question and waiting for the answer to come through. You can take a bath or a shower, or do something relaxing like that. You can go on a solo retreat, which is really great because that, again, gives you the time and the space for you. You can do a silent retreat. Years ago, I talked about a retreat that I did with my friend Kathy, where we created our own personal silent retreat. We just went to an old farmhouse on Airbnb and just did creative stuff. Like we did like art journaling and regular journaling and pulled cards. And we were silent the whole time. It was really, really great. So you can do that alone. Obviously, if you're alone, you're not going to be talking to anyone. But you could also do it with a friend and create that kind of personal retreat in silence. It's really, really, really great because that silence gives you, again, the time and the space to let those messages come through. And also, when you're doing a silent retreat with other people, it's really, really interesting because stuff happens. And you start thinking things like, what does this person think of me? Or what do I think of? And like all of your kind of fears and crap come up. And so that's a really good opportunity for clearing some of that stuff. You can just spend time alone, again, giving yourself the time and the space. You can read books. There are books on intuition. Or you just read a book and relax your mind in that way and see what comes through. Finally, you can notice patterns. You might see things showing up in your life over and over, and when you see that, take note, because that could be your intuition speaking to you. Also, sleep. You could get messages through your dreams about things that you're thinking about, but you're not aware of consciously. They might pop up through your subconscious in your dreams. So those are all the different ways that you can start tuning into your intuition. And like I said, a lot of those methods involve allowing yourself the time and the space for these messages to come through. So step 3 is to turn up the volume. So one of the ways to turn up the volume of your intuition and like hear the messages louder and more clearly, one of the easiest ways is to just tune in. Like remember that list of things and tune into them and give yourself that time and space, even if it's 5 minutes, to tune in and to just see what pops into your head. But just giving yourself permission to relax and slow down is really, really powerful. So another way to turn up the volume of your intuition is to take action. So if your intuition tells you to do something, take action on it, because the more you do that and the more that you see, like your conscious brain, your logical brain sees that you had a positive outcome from following your intuition, the more it's going to be like, oh, okay, I can trust this thing. And the messages will show up louder and more clearly. Another way is to stop asking for advice. Now, I'm not saying you should never ask people for advice, but it can be really powerful to just listen to your intuition, listen to your logic and reasoning, but listen to yourself. Listen to what your system wants to do. I find that when people constantly ask others for advice, they're giving their power away to the other person. So try to stop doing that for a while and just take back your power, claim the responsibility for the decisions you make, and just stop asking for advice and make your own decisions. That will also help you with your intuition. and record the messages. So it's not always possible to take immediate action when our intuition speaks up, but you can write it down. So like if I'm out and about and I get an intuitive message suggesting that I do something or read something or whatever, I will stop and I will send myself an email. So I use this app called Captio, which I'll link to in the show notes. It's a free app where it makes the process of sending yourself an email easier. So you just write in the thing, press send, and it goes to your email. Whereas if you were to send yourself an email using like the Gmail app or the Mail app, you would open it up, you would type in your email address, and then email yourself. And that just takes that extra effort. So I find Captio super, super useful. I've been using it for years to just send myself emails. So one thing that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to cultivating their intuition and developing their intuition is trusting themselves, because a lot of people don't trust themselves. And that's why a lot of people ask other people for advice all the time without listening to their own logic and reason and intuition. So how do you trust yourself? Now, I worked with Lisa Wechtenhiser as a coach years ago, and self-trust is a big part of her teachings and a big part of her work. And working with her was absolutely fundamental in learning to trust myself. So you can find a coach like that to help you. But start by making a conscious decision to trust yourself. Give yourself permission to trust yourself. Realize that you can trust yourself. And do the mindset work to make that happen. To clear any fears and blocks and limiting beliefs you have around it being safe and appropriate to trust yourself. So like if I were going to use PSYCH-K on this, I would say I would create some belief statements like that. It's safe and appropriate for me to trust myself. It's safe and appropriate for me to trust my intuition. I trust myself. That kind of thing. Declutter some stuff. Like I said, it's always a process. And clear your mind so that you can make that space for that intuition to come in. And like I said before, take responsibility for your actions. Like when you consciously take responsibility for your actions, you develop a greater sense of self-trust. Sometimes we make good decisions, sometimes we make bad decisions, but own it. If you made a bad decision, and I'm saying that with air quotes, like evaluate what you did wrong, what went wrong, what you would like to have done instead, and what you could do next time to make a better decision if a similar situation comes up. Another way you can improve your self-trust is to just take care of yourself. Practice self-care, keep your promises to yourself. So like if you promise yourself you're going to take a holiday or take a week off or do something, like do it. Take care of yourself and keep your promises to yourself. Finish what you start when appropriate. Obviously there are times when you want to abandon or change a project. But if you start a project or started something that's really important to you, finish it. Give yourself permission to take the time and the space needed to finish your stuff that you start. And finally, value yourself. And I know this is easier said than done because a lot of people have issues with self-value and self-worth, but that's another thing you can use mindset techniques to work on. PSYCH-K is a great technique to work with in terms of increasing your self-value and your self-worth. So those are some ways to trust yourself and to trust your intuition. And your intuition is a part of you. It's not like this magical thing that like exists outside of you. It's just you and your system giving you messages. So the more you trust yourself, the more you will trust your intuition. So how to use intuition to have better adventures, to have new adventures, to have different adventures. Listen to what it says. Listen to the things that it tells you. So lately, I've been having so many kind of intuitive nudges to like go on a beach holiday, which is something that I don't do. I can't remember the last time I went on a beach holiday and like just sat on a beach and did nothing. But I've had this like overwhelming desire to do that. And so your intuitive nudge might be the exact thing you need to do, like go on a beach holiday and just like read a book on the beach or sit by the pool or whatever. Or it could be symbolic of what you really need. So, I've been really needing a break. I've been really needing a holiday. I've been really needing some time off. And I think that desire to go on a beach holiday, like what does that represent to me? That just represents like time off. It represents a vacation. It represents doing nothing. So a lot of times when I go away, I do a long distance hike or I do something active. And what I really need is just go somewhere and sit and chill. So like go camping, bring a bunch of books or bring my iPad with a bunch of ebooks and just relax and read. Just chill in the outdoors. That's what I'm going to do. Because I started thinking, okay, a beach holiday, like where would I go? I really don't want to travel abroad. Where would I go within the UK? And then I thought, is that what I really want? No, I just want to relax and like read a bunch of books and just chill. So keep that in mind when you're listening to intuitive nudges in terms of adventures. I've also really been it's like places will pop into my head. So back in the 90s, I studied abroad in Granada, Spain, and it's a place that's always been really, really special to me. And the last time I was there was probably 2014. We had a client who had a beautiful house in the Albaicín in Granada, and we went there for like 2 weeks, and it was just glorious. And I don't necessarily need to have the same kind of experience like staying at this client's house because we haven't been in touch lately, but that place, the city, keeps popping into my head, and I feel this kind of craving to go there. So if a specific place keeps popping into your head, maybe that's a place where you could travel, whether it's a place that you've been to or a place that you've never been to. That could be something to go on your list for the next time you feel like traveling. So pay attention to any places that keep popping into your head, places that appeal to you, places that people mention to you that kind of have like a zing to them. Pay attention to any types of adventures or holidays or trips that keep popping into your mind or that people mention to you that feel appealing. And just make note, like maybe have a page in your journal where you keep track of all these adventures or travel destinations and just record them. Because with adventures, I talked before about taking immediate action on your intuition, but with adventures, you're probably not going to just drop everything and like book a flight. It's the kind of thing that you want to write down, to record, and then start planning for. So have a space in your journal or have like an Evernote page or create like a note on your computer or on your phone. Have a space where you can record these places, adventures, holidays, trips. And then when you have the time and space in your calendar to book something, book it or start planning it. And just pay attention to your dreams as well. Like any dreams you might have that include like trips or adventures, just pay attention to all the messages that come in about different types of things that you could do. Even if your head gets in the way and says, oh, you can't afford that, or you'll never be able to do that, or whatever, just override the head and just have your intuitive list of places to go and things to do. And that's pretty much it. I think the big part of this is cultivating your intuition, learning to accept it, learning to trust it, allowing it the time and the space to come in and speak to you, and then using that for every aspect of your life as well as your adventures. And even if you can't get away now or can't afford to get away or don't have the time, don't have the space, don't have the money, whatever, if you really feel like you can't do a lot of the things on your list, you can start researching them. You can start looking at what it would cost or what it would be like. And a lot of times just doing the research for an adventure gives me so much joy. It's not the same as actually doing the adventure, but it really paves the way to actually doing that adventure or going on that trip. So if you think you can't do it, just start researching, learn more about it, and then you may be surprised that it actually happens. Obviously, you got to plan it and do it, but planning can be a great place to start. So, hope you found this interesting and useful. If you have any questions about following your intuition, trusting your intuition, building your intuition, please get in touch. You can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or find me online and send me a message. Hope you found this useful, and I hope you start trying some of these techniques for developing your intuition. Again, let me know how it goes. I love talking about this, and I think intuition is super important. It has been a huge part of my life in recent years, but it was a long journey to get here. So that's why I talk about it and write about it, because it's important for me to help other people have a more efficient journey than I did. So next week's episode, I think, is going to be an interview with Cara Wilde. We're going to be talking about stone circles, but again, with guests, maybe or it may not be. Who knows? I'm also really excited because I'm finally accepting like pitches to the podcast. So if you're a listener, you're interested in being on the show, go to hollywharton.com/pitch and you can fill out my form and get in there. I've also appeared in podcastguests.com. I've got 25 responses to that. I'm kind of filtering through them still and trying to figure out who I want on, who's a good fit, who might not be. But even with just those people, I've got like enough guests for the next year. So that's super, super exciting because I try to do 2 guests and 2 solo shows a month at least. So we'll see. But I welcome you to send me some ideas of people that you'd like to be on the show or pitch yourself. I was really resistant to this for so long because when I was interviewing business people, I had so many people pitching that just wanted to like promote themselves, and it didn't go very well. Like I didn't have interesting conversations. And so after that, I was like, no, I'm only going to interview people that I know that I can have a good conversation with. But I think now I'm trusting myself more to be able to check someone out online and see if they're a good fit. So anyway, open hollywharton.com/pitch. Head over there if you're interested. And I look forward to sharing some new people that I don't know. These people have just come out of the blue. I've never heard of any of these people that have pitched to me from podcastguests.com. And so it's exciting because it's new people. And I look forward to sharing some of them with you. So that's it for now. Good luck with using your intuition to plan your next adventures and travels. And happy trails to you. Have a great, great week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.